Welcome everyone to the 2018 Preschool Mindfulness Summit. I'm very excited to welcome our next guest, Dr. Dan Siegel. He's a mentor, I feel, to me. Read all of his books and have learned so much from him. He's the executive director of the Mindsight Institute, the author of books like Whole Brain Child, Mindsight, Parenting from the Inside Out, and many others. And very exciting, he has a new book, which by the time you watch this will be out, and that is called The Yes Brain: How to Cultivate Courage, Curiosity, and Resilience in Your Child. So we're all very excited, I think, for that to come out and for us to learn more from you. So thank you once again and welcome.
Thanks, Helen. Great to be here with you.
Thanks. So let's start with some of the topics in the new book, The Yes Brain. So what inspired you to write the book, and what is the Yes Brain?
So the Yes Brain is all about how, as parents or other care providers, or even as teachers or coaches or anyone who supports the development of a child or adolescent, how we can understand that the brain can be in a yes state, which means a way of approaching the world with gusto, with vitality, with optimism, with persistence and passion that allows you to see from a brain point of view that you can be in this receptive, open, connecting state, or you can be in what you can call the no brain state, which is when you're reactive, withdrawing from engaging in the world, you lose your sense of curiosity, your feeling of connection to other people, and even to your own inner life is very much narrowed. And so when we're in the no brain state, we can't learn as well, and we can't connect with other people or even ourselves as well.
Right. So this session is called Cultivating the Yes Brain in Your Preschool Child. And in the book, you talk about 4 fundamentals: balance, resilience, insights, and empathy. So can you tell us a little bit about why those are important and how they can develop and strengthen in a preschool child?
Absolutely. Well, for those of you who know my other writings, you know I have a little bit of a problem that, for those who don't know me, I should confess. I'm an acronym addict. So I love when you translate science in a way that's memorable for people like parents to really not just understand, but then apply in their lives and be able to easily remember. So this acronym spells the cheese brie.
Right. Okay.
But that's not why we chose
nice.
it.
Yeah.
But you can remember it that way.
Yeah.
It's the acronym, but there you go. And the brie term comes from a scientific synthesis of all the different ways of describing the functions that come out of what's called an integrated brain. And integration sounds like a fancy word, but it's really quite simple. It's how different things, like your left and your right, or your upper and your lower, how those different things are allowed to be different. In fact, the differences are honored and thrive. You thrive with those differences.
Yeah.
You enjoy them, you cultivate them, but then you link them together, kind of like 2 people in a healthy relationship. You can be different, but also communicate with compassionate linkages. So in the brain, it turns out that integration is the basis for every form of regulation we can find, like regulating your emotions, or regulating your stick-to-itness called grit, or having a mindset that says, something, that test result was different than I thought, or that play date was different than I thought if you're in preschool.
Yeah.
But I can try it a different way next time, and I'll differentiate these different ways of doing it, and maybe next time it'll be closer to what I had in mind. So that would be basically taking all the science you can of integration in the brain,
right,
seeing how it creates regulation of our lives, like our emotions and memories and relationships, and putting it together in a 4-part acronym of balance, resilience, insight, and empathy that really capture the brain in its full yes state. And by the way the inspiration for this came from was in workshops. I did what I had done with my patients, people I work with, which is to say no really harshly several times and see how people experience that, and then pause and then say yes. And we can do that if you'd like in a sweet, supportive way.
Yeah.
And the difference people feel right away. So that's where the idea of the brain state of yes versus the brain state of no comes from. And then Tina Bryson, my colleague, and I thought it would be really nice and useful for parents to have a deep dive into how to cultivate a yes brain, this receptive, open state that children can be taught how to develop. It's not something you just have on your own. Your parents and other care providers can help you cultivate it.
Right. Yeah, I think it's so important, especially in these times that we try to provide more connection and empathy and develop kindness in young children. Because I think that will change the world. That's my personal
I'm with you all the way.
So yeah, it's wonderful to hear about that. So one of the things you mentioned in the subtitle is courage. And I know a lot of parents and teachers might wonder how to develop courage in preschoolers. And, sometimes you don't know whether you should kind of push a child forward, or if they're feeling vulnerable, if you should kind of make them feel safer. So how would you say that we can decide when's the good time to push them forward and when's a good time to keep them feeling more safe and secure?
Yeah, so Tina and I say that when it's time for pushing or time for the cushion.
Right. Okay.
Because it's a really important question you're asking. When you go through the 4 elements of BRIE, balance is where you want to teach a child how to embrace the wide array of their emotions. That's the B. Resilience is when they get off balance, when they start getting chaotic or rigid, how do you actually give them the skills of getting back? So that's what resilience is. Insight is to knowing what's going on inside themselves, and empathy is to really be respectful and interested in what's going on inside of someone else. So in terms of the courage question you're asking, when you look at these 4 elements of BRIE, you can see that a yes brain state for courage would mean that I am able to feel the full emotions I have, including the excitement of curiosity, let's say, and really wanting to know about something. But let's say a preschooler has gone to school, they tried to draw their letters, and let's say there was a not so informed, teacher who kind of yelled at them for writing it wrong. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but let's say it happens. So that can create in your child a no-brain state.
Right.
That can cut off their courage to try new things, right? So to get right to your example of courage, this would be an example where you really want to talk to your child about having the courage to be wrong.
Right.
Because we need to redefine success. And I think what you're saying earlier about the future depends on this. I think, Helen, the future depends on our preschool kids and older learning a new definition of success that needs to come in part from courage, the courage to be wrong and to try things out. Because if we just stick with how things are, things aren't going so well. So that's number 1. Number 2 is when we look at the courage through the lens of, insight and empathy, you can say, when we give children the courage to realize it's not just about them, but it's about us being individuated and being different, that's great, but also connecting to others, then you realize out of collaboration will come a very creative way of being courageous, right? So this is where all these things beautifully weave together when parents have tried these approaches, and it's a win-win thing all around, because you will feel more empowered as a parent. Your child will feel better about herself or himself, and when they go out in the world, the kind of citizens we need are people who have balance, resilience, insight, and empathy, So the kind of world they create and the way they measure success is really based on connection and meaning, not just some kind of false layering of, certain grade point averages or amount of money or, the way you accumulate stuff.
Right.
We've seen, unfortunately, in this world that when those are the measures of success, everyone really is hurt, even the people who win the success, because ultimately they're not helping the world at large. And the deep meaning that you can get from collaborating and connection and making the world a healthier place, that's the kind of success we want to help kids realize is what they can actually achieve with the courage to work in that direction.
Right. Yeah, that's wonderful and so important. I work with a lot of schools all over the world, but I think I find especially in Asia that there's a fear of failure even at a very young age, and because the school systems are quite competitive, even the preschools. So children don't want to fail, or they have this fear of failure. They get mad if they don't win.
Exactly.
There's so many competitions, speech competitions, singing competitions, and
Well,
so what would you say to try and change that or help children who are in those situations?
Well, Helen, that's, it's so powerful what you're saying, because I was actually teaching in Myanmar a bit ago, and the day that I was doing some different teachings, they said it was the day the standardized test scores for the high school student was going to be released. So that night they were expecting a lot of suicides.
Right. Yeah. It's so sad.
And, I had just been up to the two high schools across the street from Stanford University in California, where they had the same issue, where kids were jumping in front of the train. And so if you go to my website, drdansiegel.com, and go to the resources, those high school students made a video of the intervention I did at the school.
Wow.
And so you can watch it to see what I say to at least the high school kids. I think preschool is the right place to start, because by the time a kid's in high school, after over a decade of being told that the only thing that is a measure of you accomplishing something that we'll call success is your grade point average or other accumulations of numerically measurable things, whether it's money or the elite status of the college you get into. These are things that a high school kid faces. But you can start in preschool. In fact, it's the best place to start by really talking about not those no-brain standards, which is what they are really, but yes-brain standards. And what are those? Those are really feeling your inner experience, called insight. Compassionately connecting with the inner experience of others. Working collaboratively so that you can face the world's problems. And if you're someone who loves competition, great. Compete with the world's problems, so when you beat the competition, everyone benefits. That's a yes-brain approach to success. And I think, with the work you're doing and with the work everyone listening is doing at the level of preschool, but even if you look at just the level of education in general, we have got to wake ourselves up to a new way of defining success. And in the Yes Brain, throughout the whole thing is about this. And it's about basically saying, look, to a parent, it isn't just up to the teachers, And this is what I said at those high schools where the kids were jumping in front of the train, sadly. And, who I'm facing in the audience, if you watch the video, are the surviving kids, the parents of the kids in general in the school, the teachers and the administrators. And so I appeal to them that we can understand the nervousness everyone feels. There's a lot of people on the planet. There's a lot of unemployment. Every parent, starting when a baby's born, but especially in preschool, when they're out of your house and into preschool, you start worrying, oh my God, how can I guarantee their safety, their well-being, and their success? So parents generally love their children and want the best for them. That's a given. Not always true, but let's say mostly it's true. Then what the parents do is say, if my deep drive is to protect my child in this complicated, ever-changing world, and there's a term called VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Those are the qualities of the times we're in: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. In these VUCA times, every parent is feeling nervous. Like, how can I really protect my baby? Now your baby's in preschool or elementary school or middle school or high school, Yeah. And so you cling to something that has the kind of initial illusion that you can influence it. Like, I can force my kid to get into studying so hard they get the best score, do this contest, they win that contest. And if I can accumulate enough wins on their resume, so by the time they're applying for middle school, they'll be set up to beat the competition. And what I said in the video, which I'll say here, is that we raise children to be like the wax of candles and tell them success is being the brightest candle in the box. But it's a lose-lose situation, because if you're a candle lit up and you see other candles lit up too, you try to blow out their wicks, right?
Right.
What if we had a world where we realize we're not just the wax, the body's important for sure, but we're also the flame. And then when we see other wicks not lit up, we lean over and we light them up. And then when everyone's flame is lit up and yours is also lit up, did that take anything away from your wick? Nothing.
Yeah.
It just makes the world a brighter place. That's the kind of world we need to create. And I think we can do it if we redefine the nature of success and speak directly to parents and other people like teachers and say, look, we understand you want to lock your sights onto something that has a number to it, like the GPA or the score on a test or the eliteness of a school or the amount of money someone wins. But you know something? That is killing individuals. It's killing our culture. It's killing the planet. So it's a lose, lose, lose situation. We have to have the courage ourselves as the adults to take a deep breath and realize an internal compass, which is what the BRE is all about. Balance, resilience, insight, and empathy of a yes brain. Build this internal compass so that the reality is we can't know what the world is going to be like in 15 years, let alone in 5 years. We just don't know. And it looks like, all the indicators looks like it's going to be an even more VUCA world.
Right.
More volatile, more uncertain, if you can imagine that, more ambiguous, more complex, right? So what we need to do is prepare our kids, not for some number that may have been okay for our childhood, but prepare them with an internal compass that gives them the courage and creativity and resilience that come from this BRE way of building the yes brain in our children. And you know something, Helen, that is a doable thing. This isn't just like pie in the sky stuff. It's actually doable. And it's what the world is waiting for.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love the analogy you gave of the wicks and the flames. And I think, more and more people are starting to realize something needs to change. And if we start with our preschool children, we can really impact the world as these children go up and they're not afraid, they're able to make connections, and they want to support and help other people. And I think
exactly. Well, Helen, think about that idea of going out and helping and support other people. Every research project I know of that looks at this shows what you just said is the key to not only happiness, but also physical well-being as well as mental well-being, and how long you live are being part of these networks of support. So think about it this way. If we can help preschool kids come to realize the truth that they are as much the flame as the wax, then once they allow their flame to lighten up the world, you don't own the light. You share the light.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is where the whole shift can happen, I think, pretty rapidly if we do this collectively.
Yeah.
The shift can happen where you realize one of your major tasks is to make this a brighter world, and you don't have to own the light with which you do that.
Right. Yeah, wonderful. That's beautiful. Uh,
That's what we
Makes
can
me
do.
very excited. Yes, just need to keep pushing forward and
No, but you know
sure.
something, Helen, think about it. Pushing forward with a shared
Vision. Yeah.
articulated vision
Yes.
is something we can do. If we push forward all just saying, well, we hope, but we don't have a notion of it, I
Yeah.
think, and as painful and weird as it may sound, I think embracing a new way that we view who we are. And I
Yeah.
mean we in a sense of individually and collectively. I mean, I always throw out this word, and some of my colleagues think it's a silly word. I actually like it, and a lot of my other colleagues and students love it, but it's the word MWE, M-W-E.
Okay.
If you can have preschool kids realize their identity is both a differentiated me, that's the wax of the body, and a differentiated we, that's our shared light,
Yeah.
but realize who we are as an individual self is not a me alone, it's a we. You are the light and not the wax alone. And if we do this and realize we is whom we are,
Yeah.
it's a shift that actually can pretty rapidly release the natural kindness
Yeah.
and compassion and collaboration that we need now more than ever before.
Yes.
It's a simple articulation of a deep shift that I think is very, very possible to achieve. And when I work with people and they start wrestling with this and trying to live it, you know what they say? They say it's a kind of relief.
Right.
There's been a kind of foggy,
Yeah.
I don't want to say delusional, but that's what Einstein called it, the delusion of our separateness. But there's been
Right.
a foggy,
Yeah. This,
something we've been living in.
yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. Just it's not clear, is it? It's all bits and pieces, but not a coherent plan, really.
And not a coherent plan. And we've been in this bits and pieces fogginess of believing we're all separate
Right.
because
Yeah.
we've defined the skin of the body as the boundary of the self. And that has been done for 2,500 years, since the time of Hippocrates, really. It's done in contemporary culture. And preschool is a magnificent time
Yeah.
to not just have people learn the basics of, holding hands when you cross the street and sharing your toys and taking a nap together and all that beautiful, fun stuff that people often make
Yeah.
as a joke. But it's not a joke. It's actually, if we articulate it, it's teaching us that we are a we, not just a me alone. And with this view articulated, I think we can do it. I
Right.
really do. And it
I
takes
love that.
all of us together, thinking, how does this going to be embraced? What does this take away from anybody? All it does is help the world be a brighter place.
Yeah. 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 It sounds wonderful, and I'm very positive that we can achieve it. So we're coming to an end, and I just wanted to talk to you a bit, because I know your books are very practical. So for any parents and teachers out there that haven't read the books, highly recommend them. There's lots of exercises that you can do, simple things you can just try out. So could you just give us an example of something maybe with toddlers and preschoolers? There's lots of kind of negative emotions that are coming out, or they're learning how to manage their emotions. So what would you suggest for somebody that's maybe having a crying because they had their toy taken away in a preschool class, and how would a teacher best handle that situation?
Yeah, so let's do two approaches in the preschool class. And we can figure out which is a no-brain approach.
Yeah.
Yes-brain approach. So here's one approach. So let's say little Sarah is playing on in the yard, and Joanna comes and takes her blocks away from her. And Sarah tries to pull the block away from Joanna, but Joanna won't have it. And she runs up to the top of the slide and keeps the block up there and is taunting Sarah. Okay, so Sarah comes in and complains to the teacher. Right now, One approach would be to say to Sarah, just go get your toy, or don't worry about it. There are other blocks.
Yeah.
Right. Or, you can have the blocks in here, whatever, which is understandable. You'd be distracting Sarah and in a way, just letting her run away from the experience. And that's understandable that a busy teacher might do it. But what that moment, which was really an opportunity to have learning happen, what that opportunity missed was to create a yes brain approach, which I'm giving away the answer, which would be more like this. You want to identify the emotion going on at the present time. So we call them reflective dialogues, where you're really cultivating this capacity for insight. So you can say to Sarah, oh, I see how upsetting it was that Joanna took your block. And I really get that. So that's the insight first part of Bree.
Right.
You're then saying, yeah, it's hard when someone takes your block. So as weird as this sounds, you're actually teaching Sarah she can be aware of her frustration and sadness and maybe disappointment in Joanna, her friend, and just sit with the feelings. So now you're going from insight to now balance. Your teacher, he can be with an emotion, no matter its intensity, and stay with that. Now she's sort of out of it because she's really upset. So now you've taught her a little bit of insight, taught her a little bit of balance. Now you're going to go for the resilience piece. So by allowing her to identify what's going on, the insight, and just be with it, the balance, you're now going to identify how she's entered a reactive no-brain state. So you can say you're really scared of Joanna, you're really mad at Joanna, you don't know what to do, you feel helpless. These are the 4 F's of a reactive no-brain state: fighting, fleeing, freezing, or fainting or feigning death. These are the 4 ways we respond. So you want to identify those and teach her things like, for example, putting a hand on her chest and a hand on her belly and focusing on her breath and breathing in and breathing out. 3 natural deep breaths, in and out, in and out, in and out. And she can see that her state of agitation from the no brain, what we call disintegrated state, can now move from this no brain state to a neutral state and then a yes brain state. So as you're with her, even if it takes an extra 30 seconds, 60 seconds, it's worth this as a teacher, because what the teacher's doing is giving Sarah the skills of resilience, which means when you're either in chaos or rigidity, which Sarah was, you're teaching her how to transition out of that and come back to balance. Now you can do the 4th part, which is simply to say, this doesn't take a lot of time to happen. The 4th part is you say, Joanna may have not understood that was your block, or if she did, she may not have understood how it felt to you. So let me go with you and let's talk to Joanna about how you felt and what might be done about what happened. Right. So now you're teaching her to have an empathic response, even in someone who she sees as her adversary, right? Which is what the world really needs.
Yeah.
So she can go and Joanna comes down with the block, and you as a teacher sit there with Joanna and Sarah, and you talk about how she felt, and Joanna's holding the block, and how Sarah felt. And then soon, what's going to happen if the teacher does the same kind of thing with Joanna? Joanna most likely will hand the block back to Sarah. And Sarah will have learned that she can be with balance. She can come back to balance with resilience. She can have insight. She can have empathy. You will teach her to have the courage to be with what her experience is. Her teacher taught her creative ways of dealing with things, and she will learn the skills of resilience with this yes brain approach.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so important, because sometimes I think as teachers, we get so busy in the day and you just want to make the situation end. But there's so many teaching moments that can really impact a child when you go through that kind of process, and they really learn, look at all the things you just mentioned, just from that one example.
Exactly. And teachers, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's, and then, you know, kids model and pick up things. And so, you know, you create that culture in your classroom very quickly, I would think, implementing these types of interventions, and instead of just trying to solve the problem very quickly and move on.
Well, exactly. And that culture that you're talking about, yes, initially for you as a teacher, it may take, you know, some reflection and thought and energy. It may take a little more time for sure. So we want to really respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will take
Yeah.
that. But once it's becomes something that you live and breathe,
Yeah.
you as a teacher will be role modeling the exact Bree elements, and you will have a yes brain, not just in the classroom, but when you go in your personal life.
Right.
So it's a win-win situation. You'll be creating what some of my colleagues and I call a generative social field, a
Right.
field of culture that you're talking about, Helen, where people really have these priorities of balance, resilience, insight, and empathy in their own way of interacting with each other and even in their inner life. And you can feel the difference in a classroom. We're doing a study of this right now to see how to cultivate more of these generative social fields. Peter Sango, Otto Scharmer, and Richard Davidson, myself, and Meta Bowl, a bunch of people, because we believe deeply that students, whether it's preschool or, you know, elementary school or beyond, students who have the opportunity to be with a teacher who is cultivating a generative social field, which I think is a yes brain classroom. When they do that, the students have the benefit of a teacher who is walking the talk.
Yeah.
And you as a teacher will benefit. You as a
Yeah.
parent will benefit. I mean, this is the fun thing about a yes brain approach.
Yeah.
Once you kind of get the ideas and see the brain aspects of it and the relational aspects of it, I don't want to say it's a no-brainer, but it's a yes-brainer. It's a yes-brainer. You know, it really, it's a win-win-win thing all around. So
Yeah.
it's a slight shift that we can make, but once you make it, it's actually a lot of fun and it's very effective.
Right. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your insights. I really enjoyed our conversation and I learned a lot, and I'm very, very happy that you were able to come on and share all your ideas with our audience of teachers and parents of preschoolers.
Oh,
And
my pleasure, Helen. Thank you.
yeah, and don't forget to get the book, The Yes Brain, which will be out already. So we will provide a link to that. And Dan's also provided a 25% discount on his course at the Mindsight Institute, and we will put that link in as well. So and please go on his website. He's got lots and lots of information, and read his other books too. Thank you once again, and hope you have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Bye.
Bye.